Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Ink and Fig. My name is Alex, and it is finally October. This is, according to many, and including myself, the best time of the year. Everything is turning colors, and it's getting cold, and I can finally drink hot coffee again without feeling like I'm dying. It's just such a good time. I love it so much, but also I love October because it is time for Halloween. And Halloween has always been my favorite holiday for so many reasons. But now this year, I actually have one more reason to be so happy about Halloween, and that's because it's my first wedding anniversary this year, and I'm so excited about that. My husband and I started dating on Halloween by accident, mind you, by accident in 2012. And that has been our anniversary ever since. He proposed to me on our 9th anniversary. We got married on our 10th. And this next one is our 11th and our first wedding anniversary. And I'm so excited about that. So, our plan is we're gonna go out for dinner because it is ridiculously easy to get a dinner reservation on Halloween because all the parents are out with their children. So getting a dinner reservation for especially wedding anniversary is actually wildly easy. So we're going to pick a place to go eat and we're going to have dinner and then we're coming back to our home and we're going to put on our wedding clothes and I'm going to do some ghost makeup and then we're going to go out for a walk and we're going to hopefully charm all of the neighborhood kidlets with our ghostly loveliness, and I think it's going to be a really fun time. So I'm super excited for Halloween this year. I don't know about you. I'm assuming since you clicked on this movie that you are probably here for either Halloween or October things, or both. And I am here to deliver. So today, I'm going to be going into some of my book recommendations for October. This is kind of a good mix of dark academia and horror and some things adjacent to that. We got some romance, we got some comedy, but it's all very much October vibes. So, without further ado, let's get into it. These books I'm going to start off by saying are in absolutely no particular order, so that's that. Okay, where am I gonna I've got the whole stack standing here next to my camera, and it is so tall, and I'm really excited about this. So, I could just start at the top and work my way down. That's absolutely an option. So, would it be me without recommending Gideon the Ninth? This book is always my favorite, but it's really great for October because, as you can probably tell from the cover, we have got bones, we've got necromancy, we've got some super edgy main characters. Like, this book is fantastic. This, I would call out of the list that I have created here, this is our comedy of the whole list. Gideon the Ninth, Harrow the Ninth, and Nona the Ninth are all absolutely hilarious. The author is from New Zealand, and if you're familiar with New Zealand's sense of humor, you know it's good stuff. Gideon the Ninth is about a necromancer who has been summoned by the Emperor of Everything to come and compete for a spot as his right-hand necromancer. Gideon is not that person, but Gideon has been sort of contracted by the necromancer to be their cavalier or their right-hand person. And it's extremely gay and extremely gothic and extremely funny and also really fucked up. Like, this book is absolutely messed up in absolutely every way. And I love it. We deal with some really interesting, over the course of the whole series, we deal with some really interesting psychological questions and some philosophical questions. And it's like, also, the paperbacks have really nice flops, so if you're into really nice floppy paperbacks, I highly recommend collecting the whole series in paperback because they are all extremely satisfying to flop. If you know, you know. The next one, admittedly, is also a thing that you have heard from me a number of times, but I do recommend this for October because the spooky vibes are truly incredible, and that is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This one, you've got murder, you've got subterfuge, you've got excellent, like, dark academia vibes, but also excellent, like, kind of psychotic vibes, which I absolutely love. If We Were Villains follows a troupe of Shakespearean drama students at an esteemed academy university situation, and one of them dies, and we have to figure out how and why that happened. I think this book would be best read in the moodiness of October, so definitely give this one a shot this month if you've been thinking about it. If you have ever been thinking about looking at Alex Michaelides, I do recommend reading his books in October, because his writing's not fantastic. I have a lot of issues with it, and it's not stellar. However, I do think that his ability to create a vibey atmosphere is really good. So if you've been wanting to try him, I think October's the best time to do it. So I have here to show you The Silent Patient and The Maidens. The Silent Patient is about a woman who kills her husband and then ceases to speak, and then her psychologist has to piece apart why that happened. The concept of this book is really good, and I think this is definitely his better written out of the two, so if you want to do one that's going to probably be quite fulfilling, this one is that. And the ending is absolutely bananas. Like, this one's really good. And The Maidens is about a murder has happened at Cambridge, and the niece of a woman who was friends with the victim asks her aunt to come and help her investigate. We encounter a cult. We encounter some really interesting murder mystery vibes in this, excellent dark academia vibes. The atmosphere in this I thought was really good. Just the whole plot kind of was a little bit more unhinged than his first book, and it didn't quite come together in the best way. But if you've been wanting to try, now is probably a good time to do it. The next one is actually a book that I got from Book of the Month, and I didn't know what to expect from it, and it was actually incredible. Not sponsored. Just want to say I'm not cool enough for that yet, but hopefully one day, if we speak it into being, maybe it will manifest. What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall is about a trio of girls who stumble upon some secrets in the woods. There is a murder, there is a serial killer, there's all kinds of fantastic and wonderful horror and thriller aspects to this book, and it just comes together in a very compelling way. And I thought that overall this story sucked me right in. This one was really good, and I think you should give it a try in October. The next one is a favorite of mine. This book, I understand, has been a little bit polarizing in the past. You either love it or you hate it. I am in the former group. This book is one of my favorites because it plays into an academic experience that I am familiar with, so I was able to really pull apart the metaphor in this and dig my fingers into it in a very sort of satisfying way for my soul. So I'm not going to say that that's going to be the experience for everybody, but that was my experience with it, and I absolutely love that. This book is Bunny by Mona Awad. This is about a girl who is in her master's creative writing program at university and has to deal with a clique of girls who call each other Bunny. They may or may not be part of a cult. They may or may not be murdering things to create boys. And there may or may not be some really excellent magical realism in this. I thought the writing in every piece of writing that I have read from Mona Awad has been an absolute banger, this one included, and just the plot of this, dark academia in the context of a creative writing setting in a university just touched my soul in a way that I can't describe, because I have done creative writing at university. I did not go back and do my master's, admittedly, but I felt like I was able to sort of sympathize with academia as it was portrayed in this book. So I really loved this, and I think that you might too if you are into sort of the academia side of things, or if you're just into cult horror. So if you're coming into October and you're like, I think I want a little bit more romance than what some of these horror books or thriller books are giving me, that's absolutely fair. For that, I recommend Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. This was Thomas's first book. I absolutely love this. I think the romance was really good. I think the plot was very compelling. And, overall, this was just a fun book. So our lead character, Yadriel, is trying to prove himself as a brujo instead of a bruja, which is two different kinds of witches that are sort of segregated by gender. Yadriel is trans, and he's trying to prove his maleness to his family, who is sort of reluctant to accept all of the nuances of what being trans means. He is trying to help lay to rest the ghost of Julian, who finds himself randomly dead one day, and this is just a whole big situation for him because he's trying to adjust to being dead. Yadriel needs to lay him to rest to prove that he's a brujo, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. This is Santa Muerta, so she is involved in various ways because she's the goddess of death, and that's really great. So this book's really fun. Definitely recommend this if you're looking for something horror-y, but a little bit more on the light side and with a fabulous romance all the way through. So the next one is another one that I have found to be slightly polarizing, but I personally found it to be a really good time, and that one is A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. This book is about a girl who is coming back to school after a very traumatic event in which her best friend died in an accident. I'm not sure if the accident is well known from the beginning, but her best friend is dead, and it might have been a ghost that was behind it, and they may have summoned that ghost by dabbling in witchcraft, which makes her feel quite guilty about how her friend died, thinking it was her fault. Meanwhile, she meets a new group of girls, one of which is extremely charismatic, enigmatic. She is a writer, and she's trying to write her next book, and she's willing to go to some very upsetting lengths in order to get that book written. I thought this book was a really fun read. It was a very edgy read. I think it wrapped up in a very interesting way. I liked the ending, but I have heard that the ending is kind of polarizing. So if you choose to read this, tell me what you thought about the ending in the comments below, because I'd love to hear your thoughts. This next one is a horror book. It is gross. So if you're not into big body gore, gratuitous things like zombies, things that zombies do, sexual assault, sort of the big trigger warnings, this might not be the one for you. But if you are into that, I highly recommend Manhunt by Gretchen Felker Martin. This book is timely. It pulls absolutely no punches on the topic of transness and turfiness and how we choose to bring ourselves together and segregate ourselves as women, regardless of whether we were cis women or trans women or non-binary people or like trans men. Really cool book. It is basically about a pair of trans women who are trying to survive in the midst of the apocalypse, where a virus attacks people that have too much testosterone, so men, basically. And they have been doing a lot of things in the apocalypse to make sure that they're able to keep their estrogen up so that they don't get gotten by the virus itself, and then also to maintain their lives as trans women. This touches on a lot of topics. It's very heavy, but it is so gripping and fascinating all the way through. Really love this book. The next book is one you have heard me talk about recently, and that is Confessions by Kanai Minato. This book is about a teacher who basically tells her class that two of their classmates were the ones that murdered her daughter a couple of weeks before this takes place. And then it's her story of revenge. This book is freaky in a lot of ways. What I love about a lot of Asian horror specifically is that we get into some really deep, dark psychological places, and this book is absolutely no exception. We get into a really fabulous revenge narrative, and we deal with a lot of people that I would probably qualify as psychopaths in here, and it's just fascinating. It's a very quick read. I polished this one off in 2 days, and I'm a slow reader, so I think this is a single day read for a lot of people. Definitely want you to give this one a shot. I have 3 more here for you, and the next 2 are duologies. The first one is Ninth House. So this one is the Alex Stern series. It is presently only a duology because I shouldn't call it a duology. It's a series, but only 2 books are presently out, and that is Ninth House and Hellbent. These books follow Alex Stern, who can see ghosts, and her journey going to Yale and helping to keep the secret societies who deal with magic and the dead and the power of the dead in check, basically. And there's demons, and there's ghosts, and there's all kinds of very cool stuff in here. And as with most of Leigh Bardugo's work, I find her writing to be very compelling, very easy to read, and I just loved the way that this story got to pull no punches. Like, I do feel like she's sort of held herself back in like Six of Crows and in Shadow and Bone because those were YA books, and there's sort of certain topics that you can't really get into very much in those two kinds of book, or in YA books in general. So getting to see her sort of at full power in an adult novel was really, really fun. Again, this one's gross. It deals with drug use and abuse in the drug trade and sexual assault and all kinds of things like that. So definitely go into this with those trigger warnings, but it's really good. And Hellbent, I think, is also just as good. Apparently that one wasn't as well received, but you know, I disagree personally. Respectfully, I disagree. I think they're both absolutely fantastic. So, the Alex Stern series. I'm trying to see if this stack is going to fall over by the time the video is over or not. So we're just going to play this game together and it's going to be great. The penultimate book on my list is Six of Crows. This is my special edition that I ordered off of Amazon .de, which is the German Amazon. This is an English version, however. It's so cool, and I love it, and the edges are sprayed, and it's so pretty. Six of Crows is a really messed up YA duology. This and the Crooked Kingdom book are the two books in this duology, and it follows 6 teenagers who are in a gang in basically not Amsterdam, is how I'm gonna phrase that. And they are all deeply traumatized and deeply messed up, and they are just trying to make a space for themselves in the world as it is. And it's a gorgeous tale of found family, and it's also really messed up, and it's just very cathartic for those of us who perhaps were teenagers that had less agency than we would have liked. And I think that's why I love this book so much. It is dark, it is gritty, and it's really, really fun. So if you have not read Six of Crows yet, do it. I honestly am thinking that I might reread this for October. I might reread the whole duology for October because I just love it so much. It's so good. Now, strangely, I actually don't have the last book in my possession at the moment because it's so good that I lent it to my best friend, and that book is Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. Alias Grace follows a true story about a woman who was incarcerated for murdering her employer in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I think it was late 1800s. And we're trying to determine whether or not she actually did it. So she undergoes like psych evaluations and this whole situation with this really disgusting psychologist. And then we also, because we are following her, we get her flashbacks to the story that led her up to this murder. And then what happened afterwards. We get a really interesting insight into how this event came about and whether or not it happened. I think so far this is my favorite piece by Margaret Atwood. I do also highly, highly recommend the series, which I think is on Netflix. It's on one of the streaming services anyway, and I thought that the series actually really closely followed the book. I was very impressed, and I honestly think that if you wanted to, you could read that or you could watch that in place of the book. Although I do still think that this book is super worth it. It is one of my favorites of all time. And I think that it's got excellent October vibes because it is spooky, it is creepy. Again, we've got ghost stuff going on, we've got some psychological stuff going on, we've got immaculate ambiance, and it's just absolute chef's kiss. It's so good. So that is my list of book recommendations for October. I know you've probably heard about a lot of these, but frankly, they're all really good, so they're getting recommended for a reason. Thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate you being here. Go ahead and follow me on all of my social media at Ink and Fig. Leave me a comment down below if you've read any of these or if you think there are any that I missed that should be on this list. Give me a like if you liked this video so that other people can come and find us, and subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed so that you don't miss any future videos. Thank you once again, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.